What's up, man?
Same old man. Another dollar, another day.
Yeah. So, we're gonna just treat this like our pre-production for elevated dialogue because I try to come up with topics that feed everything else that we do.
Pre-production
For and you know, move this mic out the way. And one of the things we were talking about was buzzwords. So I think that I always start off with what we think we know, and have a conversation about that, and then what we think we want to see happen. So like what's some overused words? What I'm saying, that you could think of, like I know the ones I got, but what do you think?
Man, I don't know. That's why I was just like, man, let me jump on and kind of see. I was thinking about some early, and I kind of came up with some phrases, and then I kind of I kind of lost them by now. But I know one of them was high value man. That's something that's thrown around there a lot. Um, I don't know. I know that's one of them. You brought up even just terms. Masculinity is another term. And I think sometimes when we have these buzzwords, actually, we'll probably get to that. I'll wait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
no,
two right now. I know you had typed up. You had said something about what was it? We actually talked about it last week.
we had narcissist
Yeah, narcissist. Yeah,
and
toxic.
yeah, toxic. Yeah, you know
Hmm.
what I'm saying. Just simple words like that. So I just came up with like what buzzwords need to go away. You know what I'm saying? And I just all of them are still kind of like relevant, but they just overused. You know what I'm saying, in a lot of spaces. So like, how do we offset people defaulting to certain language? You know what I'm saying? Because it's so ingrained in us as regular slang. Like uh, just regular communication dialogue. For it to be understood, it's kind of hard to break away from it unless we're describing how not to use it. You know what I'm saying? I think that that's ultimately what we're trying to get to, is like not just using the word, but using it in an appropriate context.
Yeah. Or
You
how
can
to use it.
how to use it exactly. You know what I'm saying? Proper application.
Yeah, I think that I was thinking about it earlier, and then just now, I was thinking about I don't have a problem with buzzwords. I think the problem is when they're used but they're not explained. And what I'm saying is that this we'll use a buzzword. We'll say, "Oh, so and so's toxic," right? But everybody, when they hear the buzzword toxic, they form an opinion about what that looks like to them, and it may or may not be different. So I think is when we use them, I think it's good because it can kind of bring everybody in some to an understanding of that buzzword. Then I think what you have to do after that is you need to define it so everybody in the room know exactly what we mean in the conversation when we're using this buzzword. You know what I mean? Because if we say, "Oh, well, he's toxic," well, depending on where you from or who you roll with or which content you may watch may determine how um, that word is defined to you. So I think that when we use the buzzwords, I think that we need to clarify so everybody in the conversation or is on
Yeah,
the same sheet of music.
right. And that's why, like, when we came in, I was like, we're going to talk about what we think we know. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? Because we've had to interact with people in different settings, to understand the right dialogue to communicate in, to get your message across or to be able to receive the message that's coming to you, right? Sometimes we can observe things from a distance or from a certain placement, and we think one thing is going on that looks like it's completely aggressive, and then some people will see the same thing and see something that's completely natural, you know what I'm saying, and simple exchange.
Mm-hmm.
If you just had to base what the nature of the conversation is on just aesthetics alone, one person can draw a completely different conclusion. You know what I'm saying? Somebody looks and sees a passionate conversation, and somebody else sees, you know, like a situation reaching a certain boiling point.
Mm-hmm.
And we assign words to aesthetics right away, you know, and it's hard to differentiate because you can quickly put imagery with certain terminology, and you know what I'm saying, you got, you know, whatever narrative you want.
Yeah. Well,
So
even like now, if you say modern woman, there's probably an image that comes
it's a
to
turn off
people's
right
head.
away.
Yeah,
That's
it's automatically a negative thing.
yes,
I mean, to
exactly.
some
So
people, but to some people, that may be a positive thing. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So, but at the same time, like you said, you're going to develop your own image of what that is, and that's why it's important to kind of define so we can excuse me, so we can level the playing field, so everybody knows exactly what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So and that's per buzzword as you go.
per
Like the
book.
words you use dictate the nature and the flow of a conversation. Like if I call you and I say I got a scheme,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be different than saying, hey, I got a plan I want you to be a part of.
Yeah,
Because language matters. You know what I'm
if
saying?
you scheme, I'm just like,
Yeah,
no, I'm good, brother.
I'm
I'm
good with the scheme.
good.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah, that changes. You
Ain't
know what I'm
scheming. Yeah,
saying? Yeah.
yeah,
You know, if I tell you, hey, if I send you a text message, you know what I'm saying, come out to this location, you know what I'm saying, with no context to it, and tell you to bring a ski mask and some gloves, you're gonna have a whole nother way of thinking about that
mm,
situation. And even, but if I tell you bring a ski mask and some gloves because we're going skiing or we're going, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying, doing out some outdoor activity that requires that type of equipment, then you're like, oh, okay, you know what I'm saying, that's different. You gonna ask for some more clarity, you know?
yeah. Yeah, so context and clarity behind the buzzwords.
Yeah, because you can easily have a conversation that where a person is uh, um, you know, giving their take on a situation based on personal experience. That's the only way you can really speak on something. You can't. It's hard to have a really, I guess, involved conversation when you got different parallels in experience. You know, because experience changes perspective, and sometimes perspective changes experience. You know, because, but all in all, you have to have the experience first. You can't evolve your opinion if you don't have experience to, you know what I'm saying, be the catalyst for that evolution, you know, because what are you going to have an opinion on something that you haven't experienced? I can't talk to somebody about the thing that you do. I can't talk to you about counseling the same way you could talk to me about counseling.
Mhm.
Just like you can't really have an opinion in great detail about any of the things that I do because you don't do them. So I think it's important that I think credibility of the person that's using the word matters.
Yeah, and I think also I kind of look at buzzwords as almost like an acronym. You know what I mean? So like if we say, I don't know, something pick any acronym, you know, we take an APFT, right?
Mhm.
Where everyone understands we say, are we taking the APFT? It's already been clearly defined of what APFT. And for those who may not know, that's the Army at the time, it was the Army Physical Fitness Test. So, but if you're in the military, you know that we all speak that same language, we all speak that same code, we all speak that same buzzword. You know what I mean? And at the same time, like if I said, that's why I said buzzwords are okay as long as they're clearly defined, because it's like an acronym. If you say um toxic masculinity, right? We use that buzzword or that phrase right there. As long as whatever we're talking about, everybody understands what it is and it's clearly defined, we can go on and keep using that buzzword throughout the rest of the conversation. That's the way I think that we should be able to, because now it's clearly defined and everybody understands what it means for this conversation. You know, if we have another conversation on another platform or another talk show, or another podcast, then it may have to be defined again so everybody understands,
Yeah,
until the circle or the people that you are in constant communication with understand to where it doesn't have to be explained anymore. Like me and you, our military service years, no one has to explain to us what APFT is. When we hear it, we automatically understand what it entails. We go out there and do 2-mile push-ups. 2-minute push-ups, 2-minute sit-ups, and 2-mile run. That was we ain't in the military no more, so that's what it was before. We don't know what it is right now, and honestly, we probably really don't care.
I don't care at all.
Yeah, I don't have to do one, so
Uh-uh.
only reason I may care if I may is if to
No,
see what it is and see
it-
if I can do it at my age.
no, I don't even have any. I have none. Uh, I like the way you said that that you wrapped everything up into an understood language amongst a certain group of people, uh, because that's what the book is about. You know what I'm saying? Reasonable black people.
Mm-hmm.
Reasonable black people understand what's important, and we're gonna prioritize based off of that. You know, and that's really what it is. Come down to prioritization about what do you really want to do? Do you want to solve the problem, or do you want to have a conversation that's rooted in just responding to each other? Because buzzwords, if not defined properly, just lead to debates.
Mm-hmm.
And debates don't do anything but reinforce people's fighting positions. You know what I'm saying? And the goal is to get to dialogue where we can have a conversation about why debates are so dangerous after a period of time. And a lot of people use the ammo of buzzwords to gaslight each other, um, argue about nothing with nothing in return.
It's a way to associate someone automatically with something. When you say Vic is a narcissist, it automatically is a negative
It's a
vibe
negative
that
thing.
goes
Yeah.
along with it. And when you say that on social media to 1 million people, you know what I mean? That's what they think Vic is. They think that Vic is a narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Probably some
what
people probably do think that.
they probably do, but you know what? You know what's crazy?
Mm.
Why would you follow a narcissist?
Yeah.
Like, somebody make that known to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be something in you that aligns you um, with the thing that you're using to, you know what I'm saying, for your discussion. Like, you know how people talk about projecting?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. How can you recognize something that you haven't done yourself?
Yeah.
You know, and if anything, most people give first. It takes a lot of power to really, really be an effective narcissist, I would assume, because all the ones I've ever read about or seen discuss it are that's been clinically diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. Like, they typically know their boundaries and they can't do anything about it. You know what I'm saying? But like in terms of a person putting themselves first, sometimes depending on what the situation is, without like putting themselves first in a way where it negatively impacts people around them, I think that's a narcissistic trait. You know what I'm saying? And I think the real word is just selfish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like some people are more selfish than anything. I think narcissist is that's so far over the top that you
Yeah.
can't even have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? See, when you say selfish, most people understand that word. And the hard part about having a conversation about what's selfish and what's not is that you're gonna have comparative examples with each other. Like, I'm gonna give you an example of, you know what I'm saying, like a way that you behave that was a selfish behavior, and you gotta listen to it. You know what I'm saying? But when you use a big word before somebody else understands how to use it, it allows that person to throw the narcissist bomb, and then the other person is like, "No, I'm not," and trying to explain themselves. you know, out of it. And then the other person that even threw the word out that didn't know the definition is not even smart enough to elaborate on the response. That, you know what I'm saying? So you see the chaos I can simulate, because then you go from panic to panic, and then now we're not even talking about why we're mad anymore or what triggered the whole conversation to begin with. So if you have a conversation just about being selfish and getting the other person to see how their choices and behavior impact the flow of a conversation, and, you know what I'm saying, create negative defensive behavior, you know what I'm saying, unintentionally, a lot of unintended consequences when you use the wrong words.
Yeah.
And that's really what the overall get of what I'm talking about is, you know. We've been really hard on each other for a lack of understanding. So not at large, but we can create another narrative, you know what I'm saying, if we use the right terminology and language to have a conversation that's centered on people that want to, you know what I'm saying, want better for themselves too, looking to self-improve. Because you can't fix anybody else. And that's what you have to recognize as you get a little bit more older. Though. So the sooner you recognize that, the better your life will be. You can't please everybody.
I think if looking at the question, what buzzwords need to go away? I ain't necessarily saying it needs to go away, but I like if you look at the term high value man, first of all, the term that Kevin Samuels used, but he said so himself that that's not something that he came up with. He got that from Forbes or some other magazine that had already published it, had already talked about it, and already gave
Mm-hmm.
definitions of what it is.
Yep.
Just made it a talking point or a buzzword to say. And I think that one of the things that we did, with not saying that conversation shouldn't be held. I like sometimes breaking even those things down into not necessarily more realistic, but something a little bit more. I can't think of the word right now, but
Relatable.
we came up with, like how we came up with like accountable masculinity, like all of those things that go into a high value man is something that men should be doing for the most part anyway. You know what I mean? And I think one of the big things that really separated was the dollar amount. But other than that, I think that men should be doing, those things anyway. So I think men should have a network. I think men should be useful, a lot of the other things that were talked about. So I think sometimes it's even better. It's more helpful to other people if we can break down a buzzword, you know what I mean, and give
Yeah.
a better understanding of it as how it relates more so to us. You know,
So
that
yeah.
the buzzword is just like the starting point. It can be the starting point of the conversation, and then we go from there. So um
Um.
and then change it or adjust it as need be for your wolf pack or for your audience or for the people you roll with.
Mhm. Hey man, it'd be ongoing business. Somebody hit me up about something on Airbnb right now. So
Mhm.
that's another example. Buzzwords, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of these
Buzzword.
what's up?
I said entrepreneur is a buzzword.
Entrepreneur's a buzzword.
Super
Yeah.
buzzword.
Yeah, but before I talk about that, because buzzwords apply to this too.
Mhm.
You mentioned high value man, and that's kind of a phrase that I completely stay away from. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But for the sake of the show, I'll give you like I guess my take on it.
Mhm.
Um, when I look at the value of something, I try to take the dollar figure out of it, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Because all money ain't good money, right? So let's just get money out the way. If you take away money, everything that it takes to have, like a sustainable means of life, like if everybody can pay for all of their foundational things, like keep their lights on, feed themselves, be able to pay for their cars, kids healthy, all of that. Anything that's just foundational anybody wants.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are really about money, right? Because if you can afford all those things, it's not a conversation. Rich people don't talk about the same stuff that, you know what I'm saying, people in a lesser income bracket talk about. They don't have the same concerns, you know. They're not worried about they can go get another car. They're not worried about things being contingent on their credit and stuff, right? So if everybody can afford those things, right, as a baseline for just to be self-sustained, what is your value? You know what I'm saying, at that point? Because you have to have something else that's not rooted off the swipe of a card, a router number, or checking account, because people with money still end up not being compatible with each other. I've heard situations, you know, I got friends that work in spaces where they've seen millionaires deny access, multi-millionaires denied access to the same rooms that, you know, people that make way less money, you know what I'm saying, or the same money, just a mixture of it, top to bottom, you know. There's just so many different ways to codify value, right? So when I think of the phrase high value man, I think about what's that individual's value to other people. You know what I'm saying? Like if you take that person out, what fails? It's like a car, right? Um, if you lose one tire, yeah, you can still drive the car. You know, you lose two tires, depending on which two tires it is, you got a situation. It's still, you know what I'm saying, not favorable, but you got a little bit more security. If you're on a motorcycle and you lose a tire, it's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. So the value of those tires on both vehicles is significant, right? But the value of a tire on a motorcycle is significantly higher than the value of a tire on a four-wheel vehicle.
There's a difference.
There's a big difference. You know what I'm saying? Like when you only got two, high value is about being scarce too.
Mm-hmm.
Scarcity determines value. That's another thing. If it's a lot in abundance, the price is always going to be favorable, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Like you got more options just simply based on the cost of it. You know what I'm saying? And the cost being time, everything that doesn't have to do with cash. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to be capable of being consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you just kind of like in and out. You know, you're not predictable. Nobody can base anything off of you. You know, so you have to have an established presence at some point, right? In a certain space, and you got to be consistent. Just like you said, hey, we're gonna do this show. We're gonna do elevated dialogue for 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Episode week after week, we have to establish a presence in order for us to say, you know what I'm saying, this is why, this is what we bring to the discussion. You know what I'm saying? If you don't come to the discussion, what you bringing?
Yeah.
And being of high value too has more to do with your availability. You know what I'm saying? Because availability is the best ability. So when we start talking about these things, and we got to be mindful of who's using the words, because credibility matters too, you know, and can you show your work? And I think when you are in a space that is considered of some sort of value, I don't even want to say high in any value, where, and by value I mean if they take you out of the picture, what keeps going? You know what I'm saying? What fails? So that's what I think. If you're not available, you're definitely not valuable. And you got to be useful. So you can't be skillless talking about your value. Or you can, but eventually you're gonna have to show your work.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to pivot and we wrapping up the you know, like the buzzwords into this whole conversation, you got to be careful of aligning yourself with some buzzwords that you can't go out and show your work on.
Yeah. I agree with that anyway. I think that, there are a lot of people who, like you said before, who use buzzwords and stuff, but they can't really elaborate anything about the buzzword past the basic talking points. Like they don't really have a clear understanding of what those words mean in the first place. Like um narcissist. Like a lot of people really don't understand exactly what that term is and what it means, and most people are getting their talking points from someone else talking point, and they've just attached themselves to that definition. And most people probably have never even really met a narcissist. You know what I mean? I
Yep.
personally have never met one that I know of. I don't know anyone who's actually been diagnosed. And I think a lot of time when we talk about conversations or people having these conversations, a lot of people don't even know who these people are or even have access to these people. So it's like people are always talking about this or that, but it's like, you don't even know anything about that. Like even like with high value man, like how many actually, if you speaking about money, if you throw the money back into the conversation and people talking about, well, high value men this and high value men or this, was like, well, how many high value men do you actually know based off of that definition? You know what I mean? How many multimillionaires or guys over X amount of dollars do you actually know or are around on a constant basis? And I think most people don't know those people because, like you said, it goes back to the scarcity part. You know what I mean? Those men on those levels are scarce. Just like if you look at a woman, you know, I'm just going to say it, a high value woman, those women are scarce. Women who want to be wives are scarce. What I mean? They're just walking around out there and they're probably not Instagram models. There's something that comes along with that. And like you said, the real women, if you want to use those terms or those buzzwords, those women are going to carry themselves a certain way.
Man. So
Buzzwords.
buzzwords, man. I am going to uh, add something up here real quick. But before I get there, we talked about um, Chris's. We'll talk about Chris's comment real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The sixth component of being high value, being useful to others and your group of fellow high value men. Now that pairs very well with rule number 4 on accountable masculinity. Live a life of service to your community and others. You must be credible and capable of both mentoring and being mentored. You must be receptive and coachable. So, going back to what Chris said, let me leave that up there for a second. So, I want to let that hang out for a minute. So, going back to what Chris said, this is why I wrote Accountable Masculinity Rule number 4, because I wanted to be able to just wrap up the whole point of being high value. Is the goal to become high value or just use your value to do good? Because one is just a reference point. That's just like a badge on the journey. You know what I'm saying? Or you go out of state and you go buy a shot glass as a souvenir. You know what I'm saying? That's when you reached whatever that status was. And really, you should have to like look back to see when you got there. Because like if you work the way you're supposed to and focus on your craft with your head down, you don't have time to look up and see if you made it there yet. You wait for there's an opportunity that's gonna come that's gonna let you know that somebody else sees you the right way, you know. And I think once you start being recognized that way, your value is then justified. You work to make it real. So that's why legacy and equity is so important on accountable masculinity rule number 4, because it goes to wrap up what Chris is talking about. The sixth component of being high value, being useful to others and your group of fellow high value men. The whole accountable masculinity manifesto that I've been working on, it kind of sweeps all of like across all 4 topics, all 4 rules. And because you have to add value in every phase of it, you have to be useful in every phase of it. Men focus on men don't argue, decentralized leadership, and then legacy and equity. All of those things are the ingredients of what we would use to determine value, self-worth and things of that nature. Appreciate that, Chris. It's easy chicken right there. So I had another thought before we got there, because you said high value woman. Then oh, I lost you on the mic.
Yeah, I was just using it as an example. I didn't really.
That's a pretty good buzzword though, because I'm gonna go ahead and update this one real quick. What is a high value woman? That's what I'm gonna put up there. So we can define that, because, like you said, there's one person's take on what's on who's valuable, and then there's another person's take, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you think a high value woman? What would be a high value woman to you? What would define that?
Shoot, I don't know. I don't know. I got some ideas. There's probably some traits that I could think about. That I would say that most men would want in a woman.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are going to go back to those same basic buzzwords: loyalty, honor, all them duty, whatever, all, the same old checklist of different things. So,
Yeah, like so for the people watching the show, this is a men's platform, and it's designed to give men better conversations to communicate over, to share different experiences. It's not limited to men, but it is focused on giving men the information they need and the perspectives they need to make better decisions and be better in general. So a lot of the times we hear a lot of phrases that are like in direct counter, just simply to compete with a different narrative, right? I had never heard of a high value woman until I started hearing the high value man piece, right? So I got to thinking about that, and it was like, well, what would make a woman high value to a man?
see, that's key right there. I think that's the difference right there. I think when we talk about a high value man or high value woman, I think is um about the buyer or the person. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's like there's high value man to a woman, then I think, or to a high value woman to a man, then there may be on a separate sense just a high value woman. See what I'm saying? Like the difference between just being a woman who wants to be single and your value to whatever, and then a woman who wants to be a wife and is valuable to a man or to a husband. So I think it's two separate ones. Even when we speaking of high value women, I think it should be separated or breaking down into two categories: as women who want men and women who don't want men. At least in my opinion,
Mhm.
because I think those are two different types of women. That's
Understood. Got you. Because like you can pick any celebrity, and you know what I'm saying, just start going from there if you wanted to, you know, limit it at that. Because some people love to go to the celebrity level
yeah.
to to define criteria for, what I'm saying, people that are not celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think value itself means like it's desirable. Like there has to be in a conversation for a man to see the value of something, there has to be an attraction. It has to be something that is unique at that given moment in time for it to fit a criteria of certain value. You know what I'm saying? If it's in abundance, whatever it is, if you don't have a whole bunch of cars, can't nobody impress you with a car. I don't care what brand it is, unless it's some dream car, real specific to you. Cars are just cars. They're just nice. They you know what I'm saying. They become no different than any other car after a while, right? But when you're able to uh, find that rare collectible because it's the one that you've been missing, you know, like you will dedicate your efforts to it. You will shift things around. Like how many times you done worked on something and you done neglected something else, put something else on the back burner, and made that priority that just came to the front a priority. It's been on the back burner the whole time, and then all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying, you got to dedicate all your energy to it, right? Because it's the one that's going to get you the quickest return on investment, or the most growth, or going to scale your business the fastest, right? Well, if you got some goals that are lining up the right way and you meet the right woman, she's going to accelerate whatever it is you got going on. So you knew that you needed something from outside of yourself to make you better, because you can only get yourself to a certain point. you know like, yeah, you can go above and beyond, but you have to trade something every time you know what I'm saying, every time you get something. So like, if you obtain stuff, or goals rather, when you are in a certain type of space, that's who you become, going into the next phase, right? So if you had to be, it's like being in the military, right? Like, you had to be a certain way in the military in order to function, properly, right? You can't speak your mind the way you want to speak your mind until you hit a certain level of status where you got experience and credibility, right? You earn every single thing the way that you go. And then you become valuable by the work that you do. And then that value is respected by others through basic structure, and them seeing you as part of the structure and making it go. So like, when we look at the value of people, we look at the work that they do, what they're responsible for. It's a whole spectrum of stuff, you know what I'm saying, before we even consider them to be credible. Like, that doesn't mean that the person doesn't have um, rights to their own opinion, but all opinions ain't applicable. So credibility is paramount, right? So when we start talking about the things that men have to work towards just to even be in a conversation where, they can actually wear their value, their self-worth, and then be able to say what's acceptable and what's not, and have options to choose and things of that nature, right? You got to figure out, if you want to call yourself of a certain type of value, what type of what do you offer other people? Because if you have value, then other people should be trading work with you in some kind of way, right?
You would think so.
You think so. But if your value doesn't benefit anybody, how do you even, what I'm saying, explain that? I know the value of charcoal to, what I'm saying, a person that barbecues.
Mm-hmm.
I know the value of, I don't know, uh, and you name it. I know the value of cartoons to kids.
Yeah.
You take a kid's tablet away with their favorite cartoon on it or something like that at the wrong time. Like, you pretty much disrupted that. That was a traumatic event for that kid, even though it's just the iPad or whatever device they're watching it on. But that thing is valuable to them.
Yeah.
Who cries when they take you away?
I think one thing, if we want to hit the topic again, high value woman, I say that if it's a woman that wants to be married, then I think that she has to have respect. She has to be able to show respect and understand what respect is. Um, so I think that would be one of the things that a high value woman would have to have.
The most important thing, what a high value woman is to me.
What's that?
She got to have code, baby. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is. That's the bottom line. And it's true self respect, and self respect that goes out to other people. I am with you on that, because respect is a foundational character necessity. There's very few things you can accomplish without respect in a healthy way. And respectful people make the world function the way it's supposed to. And respectful people are a physical boundary of what a disrespectful person, you know what I'm saying, is. If you can't tell the difference, if you don't experience different, and the only way you experience different, you have to give before you can receive, so you can understand what you're doing when you give, you know, or so you can appreciate receiving too. Because sometimes you're not in a situation where everybody can always see exactly, you know, what you bring to the table or the things that you provide, whatever that situation might be. And I'm talking about like in team structures, you know, where winning is most important. It's not about the individual getting all the credit, right? But you also have to balance all of that and stand up for yourself and be seen the right way. So it's all about how you go about getting respect too. A lot of people go about getting respect in ways that let you know that it's a selfish agenda versus trying to respect the fabric of the culture that they're trying to, you know, do their business with at that period of time, you know. So, and I always think of people as other countries, you know. I look at them like you got your own customs and courtesies, you know. That's why people will tell you right away, especially us. We quick to let somebody know where we're from. But you know what I'm saying, how we was raised, things of that nature. And all of those are just kind of like contextual boundaries to let you know that this is the geography that I learned, you know what I'm saying, that I learned to live off of. And this is what came with it. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't spend no time in your backyard. You know what I'm saying? I know my backyard and you know what I'm saying, where I'm from better than, you know, you probably know your backyard. But that's an unhealthy argument because that's dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I think that? Unless it was just to, you know, like actually just like what comes after that? If it's said in a way where it's designed to be petty and combative, you're not going to get anywhere, you know what I'm saying, in a conversation that way. You're not trying to solve the problem. But even if you are making a point, you can really make the point by doing your business and getting it done, you know, and getting the leverage on your side and turning that energy from an unhealthy competition to a positive outcome. Because like that's where the value of buzzwords comes in too. You know, if it takes you down a path where it can go negative just because of the context that it was spoken, that's your challenge to yourself to, you know, flip that in your favor without hurting nobody. You know what I'm saying? Or without ruining your access to your gifts too.
What else you got on that tablet about what a high value woman is? And do they exist?
Mm.
It's written down over there on your notes.
Now I
They exist, obviously.
yeah.
There would never be a conversation about it.
Some people say that they don't.
Oh, they do. They
Some
exist.
some is and I think that they have to exist.
They
Number
gotta
one,
exist.
you know, because
I think most men who get married probably feel like they have a high value woman.
yeah,
I think most people genuinely when they get married, they want it to be forever. I think most people going into it with that. And I think that they feel like that's the right person for the most part. Um, for the most part.
yeah. I
I-
think
I've also heard something totally different too.
I think most people get up with good intentions, man.
Yeah.
Like you don't get most people that wake up in the morning and put on the calendar when they're gonna screw somebody day up. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I do think that a level of entitlement uh, creates situations that are unpredictable because entitlement in itself is parasitic. Anyway, it's draining. It's it's anxiety producing. So it take your juice away, and you know what I'm saying, and makes you go crazy at the same time. You know, so you got all your resources intellectually and your physical well being pulled apart like this in different directions. That person that does that to you has the wrong value.
Yeah.
Their value is incompatible with you living a long and healthy life. So yeah, I think it's when we say all things are true, this is just one of those situations. If it's true for one, it's true for the other.
Mm-hmm.
But the outcomes are always gonna, like show the work. It's gonna show what makes sense and what doesn't. Like you can't avoid the data and statistics.
All about the data.
Yeah. So, man, talk to me about elevated dialogue, man.
Mm. Well, tomorrow is going to be little bit, be an adjustment. Not an adjustment. It's going to be a little different. Well, it's not going to be different, but we're bringing in, a 19-year-old from a totally different generation. He's still living at home, and he's looking to, leave the nest, and he's looking to hear what us old folk got to say about it. And all of us on the panel at some point left the house, and we all have an experience about what that was like before we left the house, the transition part, and what we've learned up until where we are now. So I think it'd be good because one of the things that we all want to do is to talk to young men and give them the cheat code to help them, so they don't necessarily have to go through some of the things that we went through. We understand that they still gotta, you know, make their own bed and whatever that saying means,
Yeah.
lay in it. But but at the same time, it's like he's still gonna have to go through and make his own mistakes and stuff like that. And some of the information I'm not saying he's probably gonna get overwhelmed, but it's probably gonna be a lot of information, probably some of the same things. But those are seeds being planted, and he'll get some of it then, he'll get some of it later, and he'll get some of it either later than that. He may not get some of this information, or some of the things may not be relevant to him until 10, 15 years from now. But that's okay. He got the information. And I think that's key, So, and I think that we're also going to be able to learn from him, um, because we get to see how he communicates. You get to see how some of these young men are thinking, and what they think about us. So I think that we're all going to be able to learn something as well from this. On every show I want to learn something. Every topic that we talk about, for the most part, is relevant in my life at some point or shape too, or either in the past. So I want to be there for him, and I want to listen to what he has to say too.
Yeah. Um, that's very key. There's a lot of hungry young men looking for information on how to
Yeah.
be better, set for life, out in the trenches. I'm bringing. I invited one of my guys to come on too. He's young. He's like 21 years old, and figuring it out. He's not a college student. He's a like he's a salesman, and he work in vehicle sales, whatever. So I'll bring him on tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? We'll see. He's a he's a guy who's going to go places with the right information because he's hungry for it. So kind of watched him uh, transition from being 17, and trying to figure out what he want to do with himself to, like in a real short span of time, and like right around 4 years, he's on his way. You can see the success on him. You know what I'm saying already, because like he's doing stuff amongst men double his age. And
Hmm.
he's doing the same thing that they're doing, and that's one of those things that lets you know that that kid has it. It's that one thing that lets you know that it's like, okay, he belongs here. So yeah, I want to give him a chance to come on and talk about his experience and what he's learned, and be able to share, because they need to hear it from each other too, because they have to establish their own networks. Because we can learn more from them, about what they need. If we keep doing what we're doing, eventually we're gonna line up, with people that's looking for the information that we got to talk about. So I'm definitely looking forward to elevated dialogue tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, man. Well, on this, I didn't expect a whole lot of conversation,
Mm-hmm.
like on buzzwords, because the whole nature of it, ironically, we're trying to refrain from using them. So we don't want to have a long, drawn out conversation about it. I figured it's a good topic that we can get kind of like,
Use them for clarity. Use them with clarity.
yeah, use it for
Yeah,
clarity. Yeah,
with clarity.
So
Not overkill. Man,
right,
not
man,
overkill.
out of the overkill, man.
Because
So,
it gets washed. It gets washed sometimes when you keep using it. Because like I said, if you use the word narcissist, that's it. And so my final thoughts on buzzwords is like I said, I don't have a problem with buzzwords. I think that it's good to set the tone. Then I think after that, who's ever having a conversation, they need to somewhat agree or come to an understanding of what that word means so they can continue on with the conversation. I think it does no one any good to just overuse a buzzword and then not have an understanding of it, especially during a conversation between multiple personnel. Because when that happens, the message can sometimes get lost in what someone's understanding or definition of what that buzzword is, especially it's in contrast to the other people who are having a conversation. So I just think that use buzzwords. It's important to have clarity amongst the people who are having a conversation.
man, that was a very, very good take on that, man. Like I don't even want to follow it. I appreciate you. And guess I'm dead serious. Like I think context is key. I think defining defining the foundational understanding, key, clarity, all that stuff, man. There's no need to beat a dead horse, because that's what buzzwords are. Dead horses that we keep kicking. It ain't kicking no more, fam. Go ahead and send that joint to the glue factory. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's over with. So, but context is key, and you know, can't get much more clearer than that, man.
Yep.
Hey, Uncle Junior, I appreciate you. I'm gonna see you tomorrow. I greatly appreciate you showing up the same way we always show up for each other. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
Chris, we appreciate you over in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Supporting the chat. Um, Anybody else that's tuned in right now, appreciate you for showing up too. There's been another episode of Code Talk. Catch you next week. I'm out.